Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Nashtaprayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11. Today we are starting new chapter, chapter 6, text 1 onwards. Shri Shukavacha Atha Brahmatmajah Deve Prajeshera Vrituabhyaga Bhavashya Bhut Bhavesho Bayayo Bhut Ganer Vritaha. Shri Shukdev Goswami said, Lord Brahma then set off for Dwarka, accompanied by his own sons as well as by the demigods and the great Prajapatis. Lord Shiva, the bestower of auspiciousness to all living beings, also went, surrounded by many ghostly creatures. So they all went to Dwarka because they know now Krishna is about to wind up his pastimes. He's going to unmanifest everything. Indro Marudbhir Bhagwan Aditya Vasvo Ashvino Ribhavo Angiraso Rudra Vishve Sadhyascha Devataha Gandharvap Saraso Naga Siddha Charana Guyaka Risha Pitraschaiva Savidyadhar Kinnara Dwarakam Upasanjagmu Sarve Krishna Didrikshava Vapusha Yena Bhagwan Naraloka Manorava Yasho Vitene Lokeshu Sarva Lokamalapaham. The powerful Lord Indra, along with the Maruts, Adityas, Vasus, Ashwanis, Ribhus, Angiras, Rudras, Vishwadevas, Sadhyas, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charans, Guyaks, the great sages and forefathers, and the Vidyadhars and the Kinnars arrived at the city of Dwarka, hoping to see Lord Krishna. By his transcendental form, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, enchanted all human beings and spread his own fame throughout the world. The Lord's glories destroy all contamination within the universe. The personality of Godhead descends within the material world to assist the demigods in the cosmic management. Thus, the demigods can normally see such forms of the Lord as Upendra. However, here it is indicated that although accustomed to seeing various Vishnu expansions of the Lord, the demigods were specifically eager to see the most beautiful form of the Lord as Krishna. Deha Dehi Vibhaga Shanaishwari Vidyate. There is no distinction between the Supreme Lord and his personal body. The Jiva soul is different from his body, but the beautiful transcendental form of the Lord is identical with the Lord in all respects. And this is what demigods were eager to see that form of Lord Krishna. Tasyam Vibrajamanayam Samriddhayam Maharadivi Vyachakshata Vrittaksha Krishnam Adbhuta Darshanam. In that resplendent city of Dwarka, rich with all superior opulences, the demigods beheld with unsatiated eyes the wonderful form of Sri Krishna. Sargodhyanopa pagar malyash chadayanto yaduttamam girbhish chitra padarthabhis tushtu jagadishwaram. The demigods covered the Supreme Lord of the universe with flower garlands brought from the gardens of heaven. Then they praised him, the best of the Yadu dynasty, with statements containing charming words and ideas. Shrideva Uchu, Natah Smate Natapadaravinnam, Buddhindriya Prana Mano Vachobhi, Yachintyate Antar Hridi Bhava Yuktar, Mumukshubhi Karma Mayo Rupashat. The demigods began to speak. Our dear Lord, advanced mystic yogis, striving for liberation from the severe bondage of material work, meditate with great devotion upon your lotus feet within their hearts. dedicating our intelligence, senses, vital air, mind, and power of speech to your lordship. We demigods bow down at your lotus feet. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the word sma in this verse indicates vismaya, astonishment. The demigods were astonished that although great mystic yogis are only able to contemplate the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts, the demigods arriving in the city of Dwarka were able to see before them the entire body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the powerful demigods fell down like sticks before the Lord. Such full obeisances, called dandavats, like a stick, are described as follows. The obeisances offered with 8 limbs are made with 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 knees, the chest, head, the eyes, the mind, and the power of speech. So this is Ashtang, Sashtang Pranam when we say Asht. So 8 angas, 2 arms, 2 legs, 4, 2 knees, 6. No, I'm sorry, 3. The chest, head, eyes, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I'm sorry, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mind and the power of speech. And the ladies only offer, they don't offer Sashtang because they don't offer with the chest. So 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 knees, the head, the eyes, the mind, and the power of speech. The currents of material nature are very powerful, and one should therefore cling tightly to the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, the violent waves of sense gratification and mental speculation will undoubtedly sweep one away from one's eternal constitutional position. And then one will then fall down into the stringent bondage described here as Urupasha, a very powerful illusory network. So these 8 angas that we offer the respects with to the Lord. So basically it means I'm falling like a danda, and with the mind and power, speech also, I'm glorifying you. Basically, it's I'm fully surrendered unto you. You may do whatever you want. Of course, Krishna is not going to kick us because we are offering obeisances. But this should be our mood. And many times, although we perform Dandvat, this Ashtang Dandvat Pranam, but if our mind and the speech is not included in that, then it's not complete. That's all. We have to complete it. So mind should be, with our mind, we should be thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord. That I'm doing pranam at the lotus feet of the Lord, and with the speech we should be chanting the mantras or glorifying the Lord or praying to the Lord while performing pranam. Tvam mayaya trigunayat mani durvibhavyam vyaktam srijasya vasi lumpasi tadgunastha natar bhavan jit karma bhirajyate vai yatasve sukhe avyavahite abhirato anvadyaha. O unconquerable Lord, you engage your illusory energy, composed of 3 modes, to unleash, maintain, and devastate the inconceivable manifest cosmos, all within your own self. As a supreme superintendent of you appear to be situated in the interaction of the modes of nature. However, you're never affected by material activities. In fact, you're directly engaged in your own eternal spiritual bliss, and thus you cannot be accused of any material infection. The word durvibhavyam is significant. The ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world is certainly inconceivable, even for the greatest mundane scientists, who waste their lives in useless and fruitless speculation. Yet Mahavishnu, who's the secondary expansion of the Supreme Lord Krishna, sees the entire cosmos to be like an insignificant atom. So what hope is there for foolish so-called scientists who try to understand Krishna by their ridiculous experimental power? So what is this universe? Even scientists cannot figure out everything this universe. And what is this universe for Mahavishnu? It is an insignificant atom. And then what this material universe could be in the eyes of Krishna? Nothing. Thus the word anvadya is used. No one can find fault or discrepancy in the body, character, activities, or instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is never materially ignorant, therefore he never exhibits cruelty, laziness, foolishness, blindness, or material intoxication. Similarly, because the Lord is never polluted by material passion, he never exhibits material pride, lamentation, yearning, or violence. And since the Lord is free from material goodness, he never attempts to peacefully enjoy the material world with a sublime materialistic mentality. So all these qualities, the material qualities, are within us, not in the Lord, not in the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna is stated here, Swe Sukhe Avyavahite Abhirata, is eternally busy day and night in his transcendental abode, relishing the inconceivable loving devotion of his innumerable associates. The Lord is being embraced and is embracing. He is joking and is hearing the joking of his loved ones. The Lord is walking through forests full of fruits and flowers, playing in the nectarian river Yamuna, and taking part in his most confidential, transcendental loving affairs with the cowherd girls of Vrindavan. These pastimes in Krishna Loka and on other Vaikuntha planets are eternal, faultless, and an ocean of spiritual happiness. The Lord never descends to the dry platform of relative material happiness. The infinite personality of Godhead has nothing to gain from anyone. Thus, fruitive activity cannot possibly exist within the Lord. And here it is mentioned, the Lord is walking through forests full of fruits and flowers, playing in the nectarian river Yamuna and taking part in his most confidential, transcendental loving affairs, the gopis. So this is what he does. This is his Nitya Leela in Golok Vrindavan. In the forest full of fruits and flowers, the trees, they are so happy serving the Lord in this form. When the Lord walks by, they themselves lower their branches to supply him fruits and flowers. And he very gracefully, lovingly, he picks up those fruits and flowers. He eats or he decorates his friends or gopis with the flowers, Srimati Radharani with the flowers. And the gopis are picking up flowers and making garlands out of it. So even in the trees, they feel so blessed, they feel so happy serving, giving this service. Nobody else can give this service to Krishna. And they are very happy when one of their descendants, who's the flute, is always with Krishna. Even the wind, when the wind blows, if Krishna is playing or Krishna is performing some pastime, the wind blows and dries up the perspiration of Krishna, of Krishna's body. The wind feels blessed. Yes, so much of service I did. And when wind starts, just blows very softly, very gently to serve Krishna in his pastimes. Like when some gopi is fanning Krishna and Radharani. Now the fan is not doing anything. Fan is just moving. It's a wind that goes and touches the faces of Radharani and Krishna and it soothes them. So this is the service of the wind. Every entity in Golok Vrindavan is serving Radha and Krishna. That is all their purpose is. And they feel so blessed. Now the service that the wind is doing, can any Gopa or Gopi do that? No. And we can say, oh, this is Shantaras. Even that is so exalted. What to speak of other rasas? Animals, birds, everybody is serving Radha and Krishna in their pastime, somehow bringing Radha and Krishna together and giving them pleasure. This is what is spiritual world, Krishna Lok, Golok Vrindavan. That's a consciousness. And we can just imagine our consciousness. That's what we have to develop. And this is what Prabhupada has given us. Wonderful procedure, deity service, and so many other things, just to develop that kind of consciousness. Shuddhir nirlam natu tathedya durashayanam vidya shruta dhayan dan tapa kriyabhi satvatmanam rishabhate yashasi pravriddha satsriddhaya shravana sambhritaya yatasayat. O worshipable Lord, those whose consciousness is polluted by illusion may try to purify themselves by ordinary worship, study of the Vedas, charity, austerity, and ritual activities. But the purification they achieve is never as great as that attained by those pure souls who have developed a powerful transcendental faith in your glories by regularly hearing them. O greatest of all. So the purification that one receives by hearing, by regularly hearing of the glories of the Lord, that is the utmost purification. Even if a pure devotee is lacking the above qualifications, such as Vedic study and austerity, if he has unflinching faith in Lord Krishna, the Lord will save him because of his devotion. This, as Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, those who serve me with love and devotion, I give them the understanding by which they come to me. On the other hand, if one becomes falsely proud of one's material qualifications, including ordinary piety, but does not devote himself to hearing and chanting the glories of Krishna, the result will ultimately be nil. The transcendental spirit soul cannot be purified by any amount of material piety, charity, or scholarship. Only the transcendental Supreme Lord can purify the transcendental living entity by bestowing his mercy within the heart. The demigods were astonished at their good fortune. Even by hearing about Krishna, one achieves all perfection, but they had entered the Lord's own city and were seeing him standing before them. So this was their really great fortune. So this can only happen by hearing about him. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. That's all. By hearing again and again and again and again, Krishna enters our heart through those words which glorify him, whether it is Hare Krishna Mahamantra or whether it is his pastimes, they're all non-different from Krishna. And when Krishna enters the heart, now Krishna enters the heart means, and then hearing means what? So hearing of a neophyte, of a first comer, is definitely much different than hearing of a very advanced devotee. But the first comer who somehow or other came and hearing, so this could be his Agyat Sukriti. Unknowingly, he has performed devotion service. Shravanam is devotion service. And even if somebody hears, when devotees go and chant Harinam on the streets, somebody just hears. He doesn't know what it is. He just heard them. But this is Agyat Sukriti. Krishna's name is obviously non-different from Krishna, no matter who hears it. So slowly, when his Agyat Sukriti, the bank balance increases, then he comes in contact with devotees. And then if he's serious enough, if he has so much of piety, then he takes up the process seriously. If he's not, then it will take some more time. That's all. But definitely, Agyat Sukriti, or unknowingly, if somebody has performed devotional service, this will have the effect, whether today or tomorrow, next life, who knows. So this is what devotees keep on doing. They're creating this Agyat Sukriti bank balance for everybody. In the process, they get so much of mercy from Krishna and the Acharyas, Prabhupada. They give the mercy to these devotees who are creating this Agyat Sukriti bank balance for others. And this is all devotional services. That's all we have to do. Syanast Vangri Shubhashaya Dhumketu Shemayo Munibhiradra Hridoya Mana Yasatute Samvibhutaya Atmavadbhir Vyuhe Archita Savanasha Swarati Kramaya. Great sages desiring the highest benefit in life always cherish a lotus feet within their hearts, which are melted by love for you. Similarly, your self-controlled devotees desiring to cross beyond the material kingdom of heaven to achieve opulence equal to yours, worship your lotus feet in the morning, at noon, and in the evening. Thus, they meditate upon your lordship in your quadruple expansion. May your lotus feet become the blazing fire that burns to ashes all our inauspicious desires for material sense gratification. This is what demigods are praying. And they have so much of opulence in heaven. But they say, we don't want that. May your lotus feet become the blazing fire that burns to ashes all our inauspicious desires for material sense gratification. The conditioned living entity can purify his existence simply by having firm faith in the transcendental glories of the personality of Godhead. What then can be said of the extraordinary good fortune of the demigods who are directly seeing Lord Krishna's lotus feet? Although we are presently afflicted by innumerable material desires, these desires are temporary. Eternal living entity is meant to experience a loving relationship with the supreme living entity, the personality of Godhead. And the heart of the living entity who renders the Lord pure devotion service is completely satisfied. There's nothing else that can satisfy a living entity. We think if I make millions and billions of dollars, or I get this position or that position, I get this girl to get married to, this boy to get married to, I'll be satisfied. No, not going to happen. Nobody has ever been satisfied in the past and satisfied now or satisfied in the future, in the material world. No way. Because this is how Krishna has designed it. Just like we have so many engineers in the class. We engineers, we design something. It means that is how it's going to work. The laptop or the mobile phone we are using today right now, it's designed to do certain work. It cannot do anything else. Similarly, Krishna has designed the material world. Dukhalyam ashashvatam. This is how he has designed. So this is what it's going to give. And we think we can find happiness in this material world by the material things. No, only spiritual things or spiritual activities can give the happiness that we're looking for. And this is what even the demigods are saying. Please remove all these inauspicious material desires from our heart. The word Dhumaketu in this verse indicates a flaming comet or fire, which represents Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is a master of the mode of ignorance, and Lord Krishna's lotus feet are compared to the comet, a symbol of the potency of Shiva, which can destroy all ignorance within the heart. The word samavibhute, for achieving equal opulence, indicates that the pure devotees go back to God and enjoy the infinite bliss of the spiritual world. Lord Krishna is endowed with an unlimited opulent paraphernalia for enjoyment. And a liberated soul who goes to Krishna's abode is awarded all opulence for serving the Lord. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the word Vyuhe in this verse indicates the three Purusha incarnations, namely Mahavishnu, Garbhadaksha Vishnu, and Kshirodaksha Vishnu, as well as Vasudeva. If we can scientifically understand how Krishna expands himself to create the material world, we shall immediately experience that everything is the property of Krishna, and thus become free from the desire to exploit it for our own selfish purposes. So in third canto, Shukdev Goswami has described in detail this whole universe and this whole thing, how the creation takes place, how the universe comes into existence, and all the details of the universe, this loka, this planet, If we understand this, we should know that everything is the property of Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. And it should be used in his service only. That's it. So this is what it's said here. One who can understand this, then he'll not have a desire to enjoy it. He will only have a desire to use it in Krishna's service. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, the master of everyone and the reservoir of all opulences. And one should remember his lotus feet in the morning, at noon, and in the evening. Of course, doesn't mean in between we can forget. All it means is we should not forget his lotus feet. One who always remembers Krishna, never forgets him, will experience real blissful life beyond the pale shadow of material illusion. And these practices of chanting, of reading Prabhupada's books, service, because we are conditioned living entities, so we tend to forget things. So this is to remind us over and over again and who we are and who Krishna is, and how everything should be used in service of Krishna. Yashchintyate prayat pani bhiradvaragno traya nirukta vidinesha havir grihitva adhyatma yoga ut yogi bhiratma mayam jigyasubhi param bhagavata parishta. Those about to offer oblations into the fire of sacrifice in accordance with the Rig, Yajur, and Sama Vedas, meditate on your lotus feet. Similarly, the practitioners of transcendental yoga meditate upon your lotus feet, hoping for knowledge about your divine mystic potency. And the most elevated pure devotees perfectly worship your lotus feet. They don't just meditate, they worship, desiring to cross beyond your illusory potency. The words Atma Mayam Vigya Sukhi are significant in this verse. The mystic yogis, Adhyatma Yoga, Utta Yogi, are eager to acquire knowledge of the Lord's mystic potencies, whereas the pure devotees, Param Bhagavata, are eager to cross beyond the kingdom of illusion so that they can serve Lord Krishna's lotus feet in pure loving ecstasy. So this is the difference between devotees and jnanis or yogis. In any case, everyone is interested in the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The atheistic material scientists are also fascinated by the external material potency of the Lord, and the gross sense gratifiers are attracted by the physical body, which is also Atma Maya, or an expansion of the Lord's potency. Although all of the Lord's potencies are qualitatively one with the Lord and therefore with each other, The blissful spiritual potency is nevertheless supreme because it establishes relationships between the Lord and the pure living entities. Every living entity is originally a loving servitor of this Lord, and the spiritual energy of the Lord engages the living entity in its pure constitutional position beyond illusion. But it depends how we want to approach the Lord. Yogis approach for different, Jnanis approach for knowledge, but the devotees approach him to serve him. That's all. The demigods are glorifying the Lord's lotus feet because they're personally very eager to be purified by contact with those feet, as stated in the previous verse. When a sincere devotee eagerly desires to attain the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, the Lord brings him to his personal abode, just as the demigods were brought to Dwarka by Lord Krishna's arrangement. So Krishna wanted to bestow his mercy on all the demigods because they all had served him very nicely during his stay here, during his pastimes. So Krishna wanted to give them mercy. So he gave them his darshan. Paryushtaya tav vibho vanamalya yeyam sanspardhini bhagvati pratipatni vachri yasuprintam muya haran anam adadanno bhuyat sadangri shubhashaya dhumaketu. So about Krishna giving darshan to demigods, somebody can ask, what Krishna also gave darshan to demons, to Kansa, Shishupal, Dantavakra, and so many, Jarasan. So he gives darshan. But there's a difference. The demons, the asuras, look at him as either death personified or as an enemy, or they don't look at the beautiful body of the Lord and his limbs, and so delicate his limbs are, and how merciful the Lord is, how beautiful his smile is. They don't look at it like that. They got the darshan also. So the darshan is not just what the Lord gives, how we receive it. That's also important. Look at how all the demigods are praying to the Lord, are glorifying the Lord. The demons never did that because their consciousness is completely different. But look at the consciousness of the demigods. They all are praying. Oh Almighty Lord, you're so kind to your servants that you have accepted the withered flower garland that we have placed on your chest. Withered flower garland. They're saying it's not fit for Krishna to wear it. Although the flower garland that they brought from heaven, it never withers. It always remains fresh. But this is their mood, that they're saying, this is not befitting your chest. Since the goddess of fortune makes her abode on your transcendental chest, she will undoubtedly become agitated like a jealous co-wife upon seeing our offering also dwelling there. Yet you are so merciful that you neglect your eternal consort Lakshmi and accept our offering as most excellent worship. O merciful Lord, may your lotus feet always act as a blazing fire to consume the inauspicious desires within our hearts. Again, the same mood. Let them consume or burn away all the inauspicious desires in our heart. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Lord Krishna gratefully and happily accepts even the most meager offering from his loving devotee. Lord Krishna is conquered by the love of his pure devotees, just as a father is easily conquered by the most insignificant gift offered by his loving child. Unless a transcendentalist completely gives up the impersonal conception of life, he cannot make such a loving offerings to the Lord. The process of meditation upon the Supersoul within the heart, called Dhyana Yoga, is not as pleasing to Krishna as Bhakti Yoga or devotion service, because in Dhyana meditation, the yogi is trying to satisfy himself and not the Lord by attaining mystic powers. But the devotee, his only mood is to satisfy, to please the Lord by his services. And Krishna said, just offer me Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. And out of these four, three are coming from the trees. Patram, Pushpam, and Phalam. And Toyam, water, get from anywhere. Just offer with love and devotion. The Lord is so kind that he neglects his own eternal consort, Lakshmi, and gives preference to his humble devotee, just as a man will neglect the loving embrace of his wife when his affectionate child approaches him with a gift. Srila Jiva Goswami has pointed out that any garland worn by the Lord cannot be faded because all of the Lord's personal paraphernalia is completely transcendental and spiritually up. Similarly, there is no possibility that mundane jealousy could appear in the character of the goddess of fortune, who is as transcendental as Lord Krishna himself. Therefore, the statements of the demigods are to be understood as humorous words inspired by the intense love of Godhead. The demigods enjoy the protection of Lakshmi and ultimately of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And due to their confidence in their loving relationship with the Lord and his consort, they feel free to speak in a joking way. So it's a joking way, as Jiva Goswami is pointing out. It could be in a humble way, they are saying these things. Ketustri Vikram Yutastri Patat Patako Yaste Bhaya Bhaya Karo Asur Deva Chambam Swargaya Sadhushu Khalesh Vitaraya Bhuman Padah Punatu Bhagwan Bhajatam Aghamna. O omnipotent Lord, in your incarnation as Trivikram, you raised your leg like a flagpole to break the shell of the universe, allowing the holy Ganges to flow down like a banner of victory in three branches throughout the three planetary systems. By three mighty steps of your lotus feet, your lordship captured Bali Maharaj along with his universal kingdom. Your lotus feet inspire fear in the demons by driving them down to hell, and fearlessness among your devotees by elevating them to the perfection of heavenly life. We are sincerely trying to worship you, our Lord. Therefore, may your lotus feet kindly free us from all of our sinful reactions. So this is the pastime of Lord Vamandev. In order to reclaim for the demigods a universal kingdom seized by Bali Maharaj, Lord Krishna, as described in the 8th canto of this great book, appeared as a beautiful dwarf Brahman, Vaman, who extended his foot upward to the outer limits of the universe. When the Lord's leg breached a hole in the universal shell, the holy Ganges water came flowing into the universe. This scene appeared like an upraised flagpole with a wonderfully flowing victory banner. So, victory banner, Jap, is like a wonderful Maharaj, Jayapataka Maharaj. There's a victory banner, and when the victory banner goes, everybody else follows behind. So Ganges water came flowing into the universe, following that foot of the Lord. And Brahmaji saw that, and he filled the water in his kamandalu, and when the water came down because of Bhagirath Maharaj, and Lord Shiva held it on his head. This is how they respect the Supreme Lord. Just as with his lotus feet, he created that hole in the shell of the universe, and Ganges came down. As stated in Shruti mantras, Charanam Pavitram Vitatam Puranam Yena Putas Tarati Dushkritani. The lotus feet of the personality of Godhead are most pure, all-pervading, and the oldest of all. One who is purified by them crosses over all previous sinful activities. Throughout the universe, the process of worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord is most famous. And this is what goes on throughout the universe, every day, worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. Nasyot gav iva yasya vashe bhavanti brahmadayastanu bhrito mithuradyamana kalasya te prakriti purushayo parasya sham nastanotu charana purushottamasya. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the transcendental entity, who is superior to both material nature and the enjoyer of nature. May your lotus feet bestow transcendental pleasure upon us. All of the great demigods, beginning with Brahmaji, are embodied living entities, struggling painfully with one another under the strict control of your time factor. They're just like bulls dragged by ropes tied through their pierced noses. Srila Sridhar Swami states, in the perpetual battles between the demigods or devotees of the Lord and the demons of non-devotees, each side sometimes conquers and is sometimes apparently defeated. One may argue that all this has nothing to do with the personality of God, since it is based on nothing more than the interaction of opposing living entities. But every living entity is, however, strictly under the control of the personality of Godhead, and victory and defeat are always in the hands of the Lord. This does not contradict the fact of the living entity's free will, since the Lord awards victory and defeat according to the merit of the living entities. In a legal battle, neither the prosecution nor the defense can act independently of the legal system presided over by the authorized judge. So victory and defeat in the court are awarded by the judge, but the judge is acting according to the laws which do not favor or discriminate against either side. So the Lord is also neutral. So sometimes the demigods are victorious, sometimes the demons are. Similarly, the personality of Godhead is awarding us the results of our previous activities. In order to discredit God, materialists frequently give the argument that oftentimes innocent people suffer, whereas impious rogues enjoy life unimpeded. The fact is, however, that the personality of Godhead is not a fool, as are the materialistic persons who place such arguments. The Lord can see our many previous lives. Therefore, He may allow one to enjoy or suffer in this life, not only as a result of one's present activities, but also a result of one's previous activities. For example, by working very hard, a man may accumulate a fortune. If such a newly rich man then gives up his work and takes to degenerate life or a impious life, his fortune does not immediately disappear. On the other hand, one who is destined to become rich may now be working very hard with discipline and austerity, and yet be without spending money. So a superficial observer might well be confused upon seeing the moral, hardworking man without funds and the degenerate, lazy man in possession of the riches. Similarly, a materialistic fool without knowledge of past, present, and future is unable to understand the perfect justice of the personality of Godhead. So it is perfect justice because he is awarding through his energy, through whether Yamraj or whichever entity, the results of our own karma. But because we have limited vision, limited understanding, so we'll just look at this lifetime and not just this whole lifetime, the present situation of this lifetime. We don't know what is in store for us for the future, whether good or bad, it can be either thing. And how much more we have to go through, whether good time or bad time. We just don't know anything. And this is what the Kali Yuga is. People are always crying. Hello, Shudra Samava. Shudra means one who is always crying, actually. This is what the real the grammatical meaning is. So crying for what? Lamentation. Always lamenting. In Kali Yuga, everybody is lamenting. Not satisfied at all. But through Prabhupada's books, we understand that whatever we are going through is, whether good time or bad time, is based on our activities, whether those activities we have done this lifetime or previous lifetime. Sometimes we have done them. All we have to do, forget about everything else. Do bhakti and get out of this cycle of good lifetime, bad lifetime. Who cares for all this? Get out. And spiritual world, it's all bliss, full of bliss. The example given in this verse to explain Krishna's controlling power is appropriate. Although a bull is extremely powerful, he is easily controlled by a slight tug on a rope strung through his pierced nose. Similarly, even the most powerful politicians, scholars, demigods, etc., may immediately be put into an unbearable situation by the omnipotent personality of Godhead. Therefore, the demigods have not come to Dwarka to proudly display their universal political and intellectual powers, but to humbly surrender at the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead. And they are doing this wonderfully by glorifying the Lord, by praying to the Lord. So I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.